being bold. What does that mean? What are the traits of a leader or a successful leader that is bold?
Yeah, I think it's a good question and important to define it, because I think sometimes we can misinterpret what it actually means. For me, anyway, and in terms of what I've seen, success in leadership, there's a few things. It's about taking calculated risks, but those risks based on sound judgment. So it's not about being reckless. Bold leadership is also about being confident enough to value the input of others, and that could be your team or other broader stakeholders. It's not about arrogance. It's more about how you connect with people to create environments of creativity and innovation. Bold leaders are strategic, and they're considered in their approach, and they're not impulsive. And they have a clear vision for the future that motivates and inspires other people. And they're also persistent and resilient. So when they face challenges and setbacks, which are inevitable in our working life, and particularly probably for your audience who are looking to make pretty significant changes in their particular industries, bold leaders need to be able to respond to those challenges and setbacks in a positive way. And that's about being action, and as opposed to inaction, and not being afraid to make tough, possibly unpopular decisions. And the final point there is around empowering teams. So, and that's about inspiration and not dominance. So, enabling and empowering your team to be autonomous, and empowering them and building them up to be able to do the things that they need to do to deliver for your business.
Perfect. Look, I made some notes. I'll put them up on screen in this video. But to sum up, you were saying, that bold leaders take calculated risks, confident enough to value the input, considered and strategic, persistent and resilient. I'm just smiling because I think that's me. I don't know if all of them are. And they empower teams to be confident and autonomous. Yeah. Really, really great points. And are the traits of successful bold leaders? What are the behaviours of those leaders?
Yeah, there's lots of behaviours that underpin the traits that we just talked about. But I sort of, in my experience, I've kind of whittled it down to probably three main traits, three main behaviours, I should say. And the first is, it's all about paying attention. So this is about getting out of yourself as the leader and looking outward to the people around you that you're depending on to deliver or make change. So paying attention is important, because everyone, including your team and your stakeholders, need to be heard and acknowledged. So you don't have to agree with what people are saying, but it is important to ask questions and listen and acknowledge the views and contributions of others. Now, we'll say that if you're looking for those individuals, whether they're team members or other stakeholders, to actually make a change that will benefit you, I think it's they're more likely to accept what you're asking them to do if they've played a part in the design or the identification of the problem, or the design of the solution, or any other decisions around the change. So
yeah, I like to say that they can see a bit of themselves in the solution or what you're trying to do.
Exactly. exactly.
So any bit of feedback that it might have been yours to start with, but if they've given to you, demonstrate it's theirs and you've helped them buy in.
And to take a step further, letting them know that their feedback has had that input and showing them how that is the case, because I've seen many examples of where leaders have taken on board a lot of feedback, but they don't communicate that that's what they've done, and then people don't feel heard, if that makes sense. So being really explicit about the fact that you're listening, that you're taking on board the feedback, and hey, here's the feedback that I've taken on board, and these are the decisions or the changes that I've made based on what you've said.
Yeah, it's a very fine line between somebody giving you an idea and acknowledging that your idea might have stimulated the formation of a policy, which is slightly different, but they can see themselves in it, versus you not telling them and they say, oh my God, they didn't listen. They stole my idea and they watered it down.
Yeah, there's a little subtle dance and play around those things, but the key point is the acknowledgement bit, acknowledging.
Yes.
And to acknowledge, you have to listen. So paying attention. The next one is being clear. So look, the world at the moment is, chock full of information and difficult decisions. So whatever you can do in your, business environment with your stakeholders, your team or others, to simplify your message and be clear and simple in your communication, the easier it will be for your people to get on board with what you have to say and what you need them to do. So the key there is to not overcomplicate. Don't provide more information than they need. Be ready to talk about the change in a clear and consistent way in any format, in any forum, team meeting, conference call, an elevator conversation, a water cooler conversation, out of the street, whatever. So be really clear in your mind about what those key messages. Someone says, oh, what's happening here? What's going on with X? That you're ready to answer in a clear and simple way about what it's all about, why we're doing it, and what's going to happen.
Yes. Yes, I spent 10 years in politics, and one of the things we learnt was when to say your statement and then don't say anything more. Because if you keep trying to explain it, the reporters will report the last thing you said, which was completely a jumbled way of putting it.
Keeping it simple and then stopping and just letting, them sort of provide a bit of commentary and, listening to them at that point, because you'll get an insight into whether your message has actually hit home or not, which is important to check. And then the third behaviour there is around being predictable. So this is all about saying what you're going to do, which you've done now. You've been clear, and now do what you've said. And repeat that over and over again. Say what you're going to do and do what you've said. And then the third step actually is to say what you've done, which is that reinforcing and connecting people, your actions to the strategy that you're trying to achieve. And as part of that, saying what you're going to do, try not to overcommit so that you can actually do. Like, don't set yourself unrealistic expectations that we're going to do this, that, and the other when you know you can't deliver on that. So there's that old saying, under promise, over deliver. I think that sort of applies here. So working to realistic timeframes and outcomes. And look, at the end of the day, if you make a mistake, if you don't deliver something that you said you would, that's okay. Just communicate that. And people will be forgiving. But if you ignore it, if you sort of sweep it under the carpet, nothing to see here, people pick it up, and then that erodes the trust. This is all about trust, by the way. Saying what you're going to do, doing it, and then reminding people that you've done it. That builds trust. And when you have trust, you have people who will follow you and are more likely to get on board with whatever you're trying to do.